Hey everybody, welcome to our virtual Icewine tasting. Normally the month of January we'd be hosting the Niagara Icewine Festival, but due to the global situation we can't, but we still want to bring you an Icewine experience, which is why we've created this virtual Icewine tasting kit. Inside each kit you will receive 3 samples of our dessert wines, our Late Harvest Vidal, our Vidal Icewine, and our Cabernet Franc Icewine, as well as a Govino glass and a sample of dark chocolate for you to pair with the wine. So we're here at our Icewine vineyard to give you an idea of what Icewine truly is. Icewine is made from grapes that are naturally frozen on the vine. In Canada, law dictates that in order to call your wine Icewine, you have to pick when it's -8 degrees Celsius or colder. At that point, almost all the water in the berry freezes to the point that when you're pressing, you're getting such a tiny amount of juice from each grape, but that juice is incredibly sweet and incredibly concentrated in sugar, flavor, acid, and it makes a really magical wine. So Icewine isn't native to Canada. It actually originated in Germany in the 1800s. In the 1850s, there was one vintage where there was a really early cold snap in November when a lot of grape growers still hadn't picked all their crop. A lot of the growers said, forget about harvest, that's it, we're done for the year. But there were a few who were really hard pressed to make wine from that crop. So they picked their grapes, pressed them when they were frozen, and what they got was this juice that was almost like a syrup. Because the berries were so frozen, they only got a tiny amount of juice, but what they got was absolutely incredible. In Germany, though, they couldn't get that freeze consistently every single year. But when German grape growers came over to Canada in the 1970s and 80s, they realized that our climate is perfect for Icewine. We get that same freeze year in and year out, and we can create Icewine every single year. The first attempt to make Icewine in Canada ended in relative disaster. In 1983, there were a few wineries in the area who left a portion of their crop to Icewine, but the entire vineyard was decimated by birds, deer, and any animals who were looking for some food to eat. The next year, we got smart and put netting on the vineyard. The netting helps protect against pests, deer, birds, anything else that can kind of scurry into the vineyard and eat all your crop. So in 1984, Inniskillen created the first commercial vintage of Icewine, and the rest is history. Icewine is what really put Canada on the global wine map, and it's a stage where we still are today. So now that we've explored the Icewine vineyard and the history of Icewine, it's time to taste some wine. First up, we have our 2019 Select Late Harvest Vidal. Now, late harvest can be made in a few different ways. The 2 most popular are either letting your grapes hang on the vine until they are incredibly ripe, or pressing your Icewine grapes once they've thawed a little bit. With this late harvest, what we did was we pressed the first time for Icewine, took the grapes out of the press, let them thaw a little bit, and then pressed them again. There's still a lot of sugar bound up in the grapes, they're just frozen. So when we let the grapes thaw and we got the second, third, fourth press of juice out of there, it was a little lighter, a little more acidity, and a little less sugar than Icewine, and it doesn't have that syrupy consistency that Icewines tend to have. But on the nose and on the palate, it smells and tastes like Icewine. It's just not as sweet. So next up, we have our 2013 Vidal Icewine. Vidal is the most popular grape for Icewine production, and it lends itself really well to that. It's a very hardy grape and has very thick skin, so it can withstand being frozen and thawed multiple times throughout the winter until it's ready to harvest. Now, being that it's an older Icewine, it's starting to take on some more tertiary character, like nuttiness, a very dark color, but still has some really nice fruit. Dried apricots, candied pineapple, dried mango, a little bit of honey in there, and a little bit of that nuttiness like walnuts, hazelnuts, and really rich, beautiful texture, really nice acidity too to back that up. Finally, we have our 2014 Cab Franc Icewine. Now, red Icewine is a relatively new concept. People started making it in the late 90s, early 2000s, and all it took was one person who was really dead set on making red Icewine. Made it really well, sold out, and people loved it, and people kept making it year in and year out. Cab Franc lends itself really well to Icewine production for the same way that Vidal does. It's a very hardy grape, very thick skin, so it can withstand that multiple freeze-thaw cycles, and there's a ton of it in Niagara. Everywhere you go, there's Cab Franc on almost every corner. Now, this Icewine does have a little bit of color to it, but we extract color differently than we normally would for red grapes. With red grapes, we let the juice sit in contact with the skins for anywhere from 7 to 28 days, but with Icewine, Mother Nature does it for us. As the grapes freeze and thaw multiple times, the skins of the berries crack, and every time it cracks, it leaches color into the juice. So when we press it, we have all of our color extracted right away. Red Icewine is my favorite Icewine. It's really fun, really fruity, like strawberries, raspberries. To me, it reminds me almost of like strawberry rhubarb pie. And being that it is a little bit older, it's starting to take on some more tertiary character, but in this case, it's almost like spice, like baking spices, cinnamon, nutmegs, a little bit of cloves, and just a little bit of chocolate on the finish. And speaking of chocolate, the tried and true Icewine pairing has always been dark chocolate. Dark chocolate is really bold and intense, and it matches very well with a really bold and intense ice wine. You can also pair ice wines with spicy foods. Sweet and spicy is always a really good pairing, or aged or blue cheese. I like Pecorino Romano or Parmesan cheese for ice wine, but also blue cheese like Roquefort, Stilton. They work really well for the same reason, really big, intense, bold flavors coming together and just making a party in your mouth. So thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed our first real foray into virtual tastings and virtual tasting kits. We'll be doing a few more of these throughout the year to show off some of our new releases and some of our old favorites that you guys keep coming back for every year. Remember to subscribe to our wine club if you haven't already. Our next shipment is going out in February. And remember to drink local, stay happy, and stay healthy. Come on.